The Great Wall of China, one of the largest structures in the world that humans have ever built. It is so huge, they say you can see it from outer space. A human endeavor of epic proportion magnitude that it is today one of the greatest wonders of the world. And to think it was built almost 200 years before Christ. Something which is probably almost impossible even by today's technology and standards. It is not a fort wall for a palace or a fort. It's a fort wall for the entire nation. It goes on for miles and miles and miles and miles to the horizon, through mountains, rivers, valleys, forests, deserts. It goes on and on and on. Let's find out who built it, why did they build it, and when did they build it. It's a very, very interesting story. In 200 BC, there was no country called China. China then was divided into small kingdoms, fiefdoms, and it was not united. There were warring states in China. In a small feudal state called Qin, pronounced Chin, the feudal lord or the king there died, and his young son inherited the throne, and his name was Yingzhen. Yingzhen, as he grew up, he started acquiring neighboring kingdoms. There was a lot of battle, a lot of violence, and slowly, one by one, he conquered all the small fiefdoms and kingdoms, and there were 6 other big kingdoms. He conquered all of them and unified it, and that is what is today called China. Before Yingzhen, there was no China. They were all warring states. It was called warring states and warring fiefdoms and kingdoms. It was he who conquered all of them, unified, and made China into one country or one empire. So it was Yingzhen who created China. And it was so large, it was not really a country, it was an empire. And after having unified China, the first thing he did is he changed his name from ordinary Yingzhen to King Shi Huang. Qin meaning the name of his original province, Qin or Qin in Chinese. Qin, Shi is the first or the founding. Huang is luminous august emperor. King Shi Huang meaning the first Chinese emperor. Once he started ruling the empire, among the first things he did was he created 36 new districts. Why 36? Because he created 6 provinces. Each province had 6 districts. So 6 into 6, 36. But still, why 36? Because, yes, 6 was his lucky number, and 6 into 6 was 36. And he created 36 new districts. Then he started construction, huge infrastructure projects, massive irrigation projects, and transportation projects. He started linking 2 big rivers in China, the Yangtze River and the Li River. And he, at the age of 27, in year 220 BC, he started the construction of the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China was so humongous, he had to enslave lakhs and lakhs of people from his own empire. Using their money and their tax money, he started building the Great Wall of China. It took years, but that was his pet project. He had to build it. And finally, it was coming to the closing stages, and most of it was built. One day, he climbed up the Great Wall of China, walked along it. As it went up the mountain, he also climbed the Great Wall of China on top of the mountain. And he saw it stretches miles and miles and miles. And then, it was him who made China. Before him, there was no China. It is him who made history. Before him, there should not be history. And he said, history begins with me, and before me there is no history, and there should be no history. So when he started constructing the Great Wall of China, he buried all the books. He buried all the textbooks, the history books. He even buried the writers and the historians so that no one will ever write history before him. He killed journalists and buried them under, because there should be no media. He had full control of media and the writers and scholars. All of them became laborers who died building the Great Wall of China, and below the Great Wall of China in its foundations are books and authors and writers and historians and journalists. History begins with me, and before me there should be no other history. Due to diversion of state revenue to his whimsical projects, the state economy itself started collapsing. People were suffering. There was a famine and there was a great misery. He had to do something. So he started changing the revenue system and the land record system. He took land from the locals and gave it to non-locals. He did many things to tamper with the revenue system, none of which really succeeded. Not only that, he started a new agriculture policy. He started dictating what should be grown, when should it be grown. He even dictated what should be the shape and size of the plot or the fields. But nothing seems to work. He also changed the system of administration. In the olden days in China, kings used to administer districts and provinces through feudal lords and local leaders. But he brought in a new system of administration called legalism, wherein he took away the powers of the local leaders and he started administrating all the states and provinces and districts through paid officers. And that was the system of administration, the legalism he brought in. The fundamental concept of legalism is, do not trust people, do not trust local leaders, because they make errors, they can do favoritism, and they can become their own local lords. So bring in a system of governance run by rules and officers, and that's what is legalism. He also had great belief in Feng Shui. Feng Shui means Vastu in India. He was a great believer of Feng Shui or Vastu, astrology and numerology. He started building huge palaces with auditoriums and huge administrative offices for himself, and of course, absolutely Feng Shui or Vastu compliant buildings. He also started demolishing old heritage buildings because there should be no history before him. History begins with him. So destroy the heritage. China on the south had the impregnable wall called the Himalayas. On the north were frozen deserts and frozen Siberia. On the east was the seas. In those days, Chinese knew no other land except China, and China was the whole world and the whole universe. And this universe was ruled by Huang, King Shi Huang. So, according to King Shi Huang, he was not just the emperor of China, he was the emperor of the whole world. In fact, the emperor of the universe itself. And so, he had no need to meet ordinary people and ordinary human beings. And he started isolating himself in palaces outside his capital in the rural area. He also stopped meeting his own ministers and other feudal lords and leaders. He started isolating himself, confining himself to a very small inner circle. One day, he climbed on top of a mountain in his empire. And wherever he looked, till the horizon, was his empire, his universe. There was no opposition, no one to speak against him. He was the emperor of the entire universe. a small doubt started appearing in his mind. A small doubt. Am I human or am I God? Am I an ordinary soul or am I an extraordinary soul? Am I an Atma or a godlike Mahatma? Then, at that very moment, he concluded, he must be God. He must be a God-like Mahatma, because ordinary souls, ordinary human beings cannot have possibly achieved it. I think he has totally lost it by then. So, once again he changed his name from King Shi Huan to King Shi Huang Di. Di meaning God. Chinese, the first founding emperor god of China, King Shi Huang Di. His health started failing. He started becoming weak. So his astrologers and his physicians asked him to start taking mercury pills, because mercury pills will give him immortality. But as we know today, mercury is actually very harmful to human beings. And his health further became worse. And then the astrologers and the physicians, they all came up with a new idea. God will never die. God can never die. He needs immortality. But his human body is failing. So they advised him to build a massive tomb or a samadhi where one can never die. And so he started construction of this tomb of epic proportion, even bigger than the pyramids of Egypt. So humongous it was, it covered 500 acres. And one more project like the Great Wall of China. And then in this tomb, because he is the king and the living king, he will not die. He needed security. He always had huge convoys of security, but even in his afterlife, he needed this huge convoy of security. So along with him, they buried an army of 10,000 terracotta soldiers, because his power, it can pour life into the terracotta army itself. And there also he had mercury rivers flowing. Once again, mercury to signify immortality, because mercury never rusts. And this King Shi Huang Di, the emperor god, can never die. Strangely, only recently, just a few decades ago, such massive structure was uncovered and discovered. And so finally, in some remote area away from his capital, he finally died. They kept it a secret. And they bought his body. And till they declared his son, the new emperor, they did not bury. Then immediately they buried him in this humongous tomb of the living dead. The tomb of King Shi Huang Di lies there. After his death, his son Qin R. Shi became the emperor. But as soon as he became the emperor, there was huge internal revolts and external revolts, and the entire empire just collapsed. So I thought I'll tell this story today because his birthday is 18th February 259 BC. History forgot him, and his huge and humongous projects did not serve the purpose they were built for. They became tourist attraction, the greatest tourist attraction, the Great Wall of China. Nobody knew what was in his mind. People around him, his close inner circle, called him great. But people thought he was cruel and totally mad, and he had lost it. According to one Chinese historian, Sima Qian, who describes him as someone who in difficulty is ready to fall at people's feet, and when he is in power, without mercy, he will eat them alive. He was definitely a coward, although he was one of the greatest emperors of China.